Let me start off by welcoming everybody here and just saying thank you to Anthony for giving up his time to present with us. For those who don't know, I'm sure Anthony will talk a bit about himself, but he has a real daytime job. But then on the side, he does almost another full-time job, which is manages the plugins and things for Moodle. And so he is someone who very much knows this topic. And let me say this, he's probably one of the most nicest guys, Moodle guys you'll ever meet around the community and very helpful. So he's obviously got a lot of knowledge to share with us today. So Anthony, once again, thank you, and over to you.
Thanks, Shane. Greatly appreciate it. So we're going to be talking today about Moodle's most popular plugins. And really I'm just going through and looking at from the Moodle Plugins repository that we have on Moodle.org, looking at the statistics and those that have been kind of downloaded the most. And I'll talk a little bit about why I think some of those have been as popular as they have been. My name is Anthony Barrow. I'm a Catholic priest. I'm a Jesuit of the New Orleans province, currently assigned and living in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where I'm the associate pastor here at Immaculate Conception Church, which is a downtown parish. And so I've been here for about a year and greatly enjoy it. Previously, I was teaching at two of our Jesuit high schools, one in Dallas. I taught there for 3 years, and then I taught in Houston at a Cristo Rey Jesuit school, which is really kind of an interesting model, kind of combining students come in and they go to school 4 out of the 5 days a week, and then they get a job. We collaborate with corporate sponsors to offer students jobs, and so they get some real live work experience. And so it's an interesting project. My educational background is as a counselor. I got an MA in counseling from St. Louis University and kind of lean toward Adlerian psychology. I'm interested in racquetball and Star Trek, and so those are my little captain's pips there. So I mentioned some of these things just to let folks know, because sometimes folks feel like, I'm kind of new to Moodle and really not a full-time kind of computer person, and so am I going to fit? And do I have something to contribute to the Moodle community? And my answer is, an absolute yes. The Moodle community is made up of some very diverse and very talented individuals, and you don't have to have necessarily a programming background to get used to make the most out of your Moodle relations. So I started playing with Moodle about 8 years ago when I was teaching and I was in the classroom, and I wanted to begin doing some online discussions and moving some of those things that I might do in the classroom kind of outside of the classroom so that I could come to class more prepared. And I stumbled across Moodle around the same time that the school was looking for a learning management system. And so they asked me if I would kind of take that on and install it and kind of manage that, and I did. And in the process, I started looking at some of the PHP code that comprises Moodle, and was really impressed by how easy it was to read. And I did not have any previous background with PHP per se. I did some database programming before being a Jesuit, but PHP itself was kind of new to me, and was really kind of impressed. I said, wow, this kind of makes sense. And then every once in a while I'd come across something, I'd be like, well, that doesn't quite look right. And so then, you kind of share a patch, and pretty quickly, you can get yourself known in the Moodle community just by helping other people out. And so one of the things that I would do is I would try to answer the very basic questions when I was kind of getting started with Moodle. And if I knew the answer to something on the using Moodle forums, I would try to respond and let people know, what the answer was. And I figured if I could handle the easy stuff, then it would allow others with more experience time to kind of respond to things that I had questions about. And so the using Moodle forums is a really dynamic area, and I think the community support is really great. And one of the things that I came to realize was, as much as I admired the Moodle code, I've really come over the years to really admire some of the Moodlers, some of the people that are involved with it, and not just the programmers, people that are committed to organizing the things like the Moodle Moots and giving presentations and things like that. Just really tremendously generous people. And so, as an open source community, I think Moodle is certainly one of the most friendly environments that you can find yourself in. Martin kind of noticed that I like to tinker with stuff and play with stuff early on, and so he asked if I would kind of begin organizing and trying to help promote. At the time we called it contrib code, now we call it plugins, and going through a little bit more of a shift in vocabulary to call them add-ons. And I felt, grossly underqualified for this, but I figured I'd give it a shot. And so the community hasn't, rioted yet or called for me to be fired or anything. But pretty much I developed things that I needed at the school that I was at. And so that's one of the things that I recommend to folks is, as you're getting involved, start with what you need, start with what's helpful to you. And the more that you do that, the more I think that you'll be able to give back to the community. One of the things that, as a teacher I wanted was with the forums to be able to aggregate the ratings differently. When I first started using Moodle, it was just an average. And that didn't work for how I wanted to do things in the classroom. So I went in, I looked at the code, and made some suggestions and got those changes moved into core. And so, like I said, people's real experience, I think, can have a real impact and a real benefit for the rest of the community. So I really see my role as the plugins facilitator as someone who supports and tries to help people find their niche, how they can share and contribute to Moodle. The objectives today, the things that I want to accomplish is to help you to understand the difference between a Moodle plugin versus a Moodle add-on, and I'm going to go through that pretty quickly. I hit that in the other presentation that I gave. To identify the various types of Moodle plugins, and we'll spend a little bit more time there, looking at, for each type of plugin, a couple of examples, the most popular examples of those that are currently in the Moodle plugins. And then go through in some detail about how to integrate add-ons and get those installed onto your Moodle site. And then to assess and look at some of Moodle's most popular plugins and discuss why I think they're probably so popular. So the M in Moodle stands for modular. Moodle is Modular Object-Oriented Dynamic Learning Environment. It's an acronym. And it's designed to be expandable so that you can add pieces to it without worrying about breaking other things. And so the plugins are meant and designed to be independent. And there are different plugin types that kind of provide a framework for developing that functionality that's needed. And so we'll go through and discuss that a little bit more thoroughly when we talk about the different types of Moodle plugins. Moodle plugins increase the functionality of your site. And so folks sometimes will say, well, I don't like the way that course is organized. Just having the options of, social and topics and weekly. I'd like to be able to organize my course differently. And so you could design a course format or download a course format that does that, and then your Moodle site will be able to have that functionality. Or a theme. You say, well, I don't like the standard themes that come with Moodle, and I want to do something different with my site. And so you can go and you can browse the themes that are available in Moodle Plugins and download one of those. And all of the code in Moodle Plugins is GPL licensed, so you can freely use that without any worries. And so the idea is that you can drop in a plugin or take out a plugin, enable or disable a plugin without fearing that your whole system is going to crash or that it's going to, by adding a different authentication type that's going to mess up something with course formats. And so things really are kind of firewalled so that you can drop things in without too much worry. Initially, when we first started having people contribute code, they would contribute some patches which would modify core files. And you can still do that, but it's really kind of discouraged. We really want folks to use the core code without modification and to make sure that the plugin system is dynamic enough to be able to handle pretty much any scenario. So occasionally it's unavoidable and things like that, but usually I say if someone's submitting a patch, usually I recommend that they either consider submitting that patch to in the tracker for inclusion into Moodle so that it could be incorporated into Moodle Core, or that they add it to the others section there if it really can't be avoided. But the plugin system is pretty dynamic, and so I think it can handle a lot of things. Want to go through some of Moodle's most popular plugins, and so looking at the plugin types. There are various plugin types in Moodle. As we mentioned, things like blocks and themes and activity modules. And so I wanted to go through each one and kind of talk a little bit about what they are and some of the most popular examples of them in Moodle plugins currently. So with Moodle 2.3, they rewrote assignment and just kind of started a whole new module. One of the things that changed was prior to Moodle 2.3, there were assignment types. And now it's broken down into assignment submissions and assignment feedback. So submission has to do with how is it that a student goes in and submits work. And so the PDF submission type allows a student to take a PDF file and upload that, and it also provides, it's kind of a neat module, especially the PDF feedback. Allows the teacher to take that PDF that the student uploaded and annotate it and make comments in it and like little sticky notes, and it's really pretty slick. And I think I don't know where the discussion is on this, but at one point there was discussion about incorporating that into Moodle Core. And so one of the things that I like to encourage people to do is, when they share code, if it becomes popular and it's really well written, or it can be, kind of shaped up. Some of the ideas sometimes start in plugins and end up being incorporated into Moodle Core. So a couple examples of that would be like the book activity module by Petter and the feedback activity module by Andreas. And so I think, the community has a way of really sharing back with Moodle headquarters the code that they're writing, and then that can become incorporated into Moodle Core, which I think is a really neat way of being in communication with each other. There's the online audio recording assignment submission that allows a student to, press a button and make an audio recording, and then that becomes the submission. And so that's been a neat development. And then similarly, YouTube submission, where students can record a video and upload that as an assignment submission. And I've already talked about the assignment feedback. The numbers outside to the right there indicate the current number of plugins that have been submitted to Moodle Plugins of that type. So there are 5 different assignment submission plugins available in Moodle Plugins right now. And just to give you a little background about how that system works, let's say you write a plugin and you want to share it with the community. You go to plugins and you say that you want to add a new entry into it and populate the information, fill it all in, and submit it. And then myself and Apu at Moodle headquarters will try to review that as quickly as we can and give you some feedback and look at the code and test install it. And this gives some reassurance to the community that that the code has been looked at and that it has been tested a little bit. I turn debugging on and I try to look for any types of warnings or PHP errors and let the developer know before we make that publicly available. Let them know that these are the issues that were found and try to get those fixed up. And so I find it really great working with folks that are contributing their code. They've been remarkably friendly and receptive to feedback to kind of improve things. And so my hope is that by doing that, folks, when they do go in to install, will have a very consistent experience and be able to rely on the fact that the code does seem to do what it says it does. Moving on to course formats. Course formats, as I mentioned before, helps you to understand how to organize the content in your course. And so the 2 most popular ones there are collapsed topic, and that was dealing, I think, with the scroll of death issue. And so rather than having all of the topics completely open, it kind of collapsed them and gave you an option to open up one topic at a time or the topics that you wanted. And so it was just a good way of kind of shortening the length of the page. The grid format also was pretty popular, especially at the Sydney Moot a couple years ago when that was first presented. And so that's pretty neat. Some of the popular themes are Aardvark and Rocket seem to be kind of the 2 most popular themes out there. We have 67 themes contributed so far in Moodle Plugins. And just, so folks know, everyone has access to Moodle Plugins, and you go to moodle.org/plugins, and you can access and poke around and look and see what's there. There are 169 activity modules. The most popular ones are Hotpot, which allows kind of teachers to work with Hotpot type. Not quite sure what the word I would use is, because it's little like quizzes and things. I would probably call them like little applets, but the teachers are able to incorporate those and bring those in to Moodle. Questionnaire, which is very similar to feedback. In fact, one year I gave a presentation on comparing questionnaire to feedback. Current hopes are that there's work being done on Survey 2 to pull together the best of feedback, the best of questionnaire, and the best of survey, and make those into one solid tool in Moodle to get feedback from users, questions. And then the Big Blue Button activity module is also very popular, which just allows folks to access things like this conference today, connecting to a Big Blue Button server and creating a web conferencing type environment. Then we have 166 blocks. an activity module allows, students to participate in some way and to create something. Blocks tend to be a way of giving information to the user. And so the two most popular blocks are the configurable reports block, which allows you to create custom reports without necessarily having knowledge of SQL, and then the progress bar, giving students a visual indication of how much they've progressed through the course. Repositories, file repositories in Moodle 2.0. Moodle began wanting to interact more with other systems, things like Box.net and Alfresco and Google Docs and other just different places for storing files, and so that teachers have and schools have the flexibility to store their files wherever they want, but then conveniently be able to get to them within Moodle. When the change was made, one of the things that folks felt like they lost was the course file area, where all of the files would kind of be uploaded into the course and the teacher could see those. And so somebody wrote a course file area repository to kind of reintroduce some of that functionality. Poodle is another repository. I'd have to look up the details on that one, but it allows folks to store their files there. It's same with Microsoft SkyDrive. And so it's great to be able to have access to things like Dropbox and what have you, that teachers can kind of, store things up in the cloud and then go and grab them when they need them. So a lot of great work, I think, has been done with file repositories in general, and it's neat to see folks write code and plugins that allow them to kind of take advantage of other systems as well. Portfolios, the idea is how do I take information from Moodle and export it out to another system, and so that's kind of what the portfolio is about, and so they have the blog export portfolio available there. That's the only one, the only portfolio plugin. Then we get into the joys of teaching and the plagiarism API, and so the plagiarism plugins can have things like paid services like Turnitin.com and Urkund, and so sometimes I think folks think just because it's open source that like we're close to subscription type based things, and Moodle really wants to be very open in its way of working with other systems, and so this allows folks to create a mechanism by which work can be checked against those systems. The CROT plagiarism checker is a free plagiarism checker, and so that's available. Then we get into the various question plugins, and there are three major ones. Question types, so how a question is presented to a student, say on a quiz, and how they interact with that. The traditional ones, tend to be things like essay or true and false or matching. And so some teachers have wanted to do more creative things. And so some of the ones there are drag and drop into text, where I believe that the person can take a word and kind of drop it into the right place in the sentence type thing. Drag and drop onto image. So if you had students like, wanting to label a map, you throw the map up there and they can drag and drop and put things in there. Selecting missing words is another question type. And so really I just like to encourage people to, as you're listening to this, just kind of imagine like, what would I do, what would I like to do with Moodle? How could I see some of these things being useful on my site? and do they prompt other ideas? And feel free to kind of talk about these in the chat as we go along, because it's not unlikely that we're the only ones facing a particular situation, whether it's in the classroom or in a business setting. So kind of pulling and using each other's experiences is a great way of helping each other out. Question formats tend to be ways of kind of getting information into or out of questions, the questions database. And so I always think of like GIFT, the way of writing questions and then importing them. And so there's the Hotpot question import, and then there's the Microsoft Word table format. And so I've not tested the Microsoft Word table format extensively, kind of a distant memory, so I don't really remember that one. Then we have question behaviors. Some of the question behaviors include the question managed by a remote engine and adaptive mode. And I still haven't quite wrapped my head around what exactly question behaviors are all about. I don't know if Tim is around by chance, if he might give a simple explanation, Tim Hunt of OU or anyone from OU. But they really do seem to add some great functionality and make the quizzes much more dynamic and powerful with what folks can do. Moving on to authentication types, and I realize that this is a bit, like getting water from a fire hose, but I want to make sure that we can get through these as quickly as possible. The authentication types are things like wanting to use OAuth 2 to use Google and Facebook kind of as your authentication engine, and Moodle, which allows folks to do a single sign-on between Joomla and Moodle. Although last I recall, I don't know if those issues have been fixed, but for a while with Joomla, there seemed to be a lot of security issues kind of coming up. So a little word of caution there to research that and see what the current status of that is. Enrollment types allow folks how they're going to enroll in a course, and how enrollment into those courses is done. Both sign up and auto-enroll. The idea is that they wanted people upon account creation to be automatically enrolled by default into certain courses without having to do anything. And so that's what enrollment types are about. I really like filters. I think some of them are really neat. Filters are things like in core code, there's the activity name auto-linking filter. And so if you are typing some text and you type the name of, an assignment, your first homework assignment, and you type that out in a forum post, then it will automatically create the link to that assignment. And so filters are really great for looking for certain patterns in text, and then switching that into some type of URL, or basically just changing that code to provide some functionality. And so the Moodle filter is there. Whereas is some math-related functionality, allowing you to kind of use an editor to create some fancy mathy, sciencey kind of stuff. And then a neat one that I saw was simple speak text-to-speech. And so it allows you to just kind of tag it so that text will then trigger played as audio files. So so some neat options in filters. Moving on to general plugins, also known as local plugins. These are things that don't fit neatly into other places, so it's not a theme, it's not a course format, it's not a block. It just provides some kind of general functionality for the site as a whole. And so the most popular ones are global message, which is really great, say for site admins, getting ready to take the site down, and you want everyone that's logged on as a recent session to get a message, and you can send them that global message. Moodle Adminer, I'm not sure how that's actually pronounced, but a really cool tool, sort of a replacement for like phpMyAdmin for managing the database, the underlying database for Moodle, and it does it with a very small amount of code, and it's also compatible with other databases besides MySQL. So that was really neat. And then there's the code checker for folks who are writing plugins. I believe it was Tim Hunt and company came up with the code checker. And that's a really great tool for uploading a file and looking at have it evaluate the code by the Moodle coding standards or guidelines. And it'll highlight and let you know kind of where errors or problems are in your code and things to fix. And so that's something for folks who are writing code that want to submit that code to Moodle Plugins. It's great to go ahead and run it through the code checker, and then you'll know at least the form of the code is reasonably good. Message outputs. Moodle allows you the flexibility for how you want to receive information from Moodle, these notifications. And so it can be a Moodle message. It can be through Gabber. There are various ways, or email, things like that. And so there's only currently one in there, but there's a lot of flexibility in terms of what we can do. And there's the Moodle Text Plus allows those notifications to be sent via SMS. Okay, and moving right along. So some of Moodle's most popular plugins, those are all of the, or at least most of the plugin types. And so I have a list here of the most popular plugins. I didn't do a more careful review of all of these. I wanted to make sure that we got some different plugin types to look at. And so I skipped over things like Aardword Post-it because it was just another theme, and Rocket was another theme. And so I tried to give wider scope there. But Aardvark, Hotpot, Collapse Topics, Aardvark Post-it, Questionnaire, Rocket, Dark Blue is a theme, Decaf is a theme. We're going to talk about configurable reports. Things like Journal are interesting because Journal used to be in core code, in Moodle Core, and it was removed and brought into sort of incorporated with assignment, but it was basically deprecated and put into Moodle Plugins for those who wanted to continue to maintain it. And so occasionally, code goes from being in Moodle Plugins as an add-on into Moodle Core, and sometimes things can, very rarely, go from core and drop out, supported anymore. That is very rare, as Moodle really makes a commitment to ensuring that the functionality remains the same, or at least the same functionality is available. Zebra, I believe, was a theme. Grid format was a course format. The checklist activity module, book activity module, is currently now in core. but it was very popular, and because of that popularity, it was added in. The certificate activity module was really neat, or is really neat, that allows folks basically to earn a certificate, and it keeps track of that certificate, and folks can print those out and have that. So that was a neat project, I thought. Sort of maybe kind of a precursor to badges. So it was a neat idea. And so one of the things that I really like about being involved with Moodle plugins is that I get to see the latest and the greatest ideas that folks are playing with, and just kind of really pushing the envelope to see, well, what's possible, what can we do? And so you know, I think it's a good place to kind of, you know, even if you don't install them on your own server, it's a good place to kind of look around and get some ideas. Progress bar is a block. Bootstrap was a theme, and fadeback, I'm not sure what that is, but popular. So just looking at, oh, sorry, I guess there's a few more types here. Reports, there are general reports, and then there are admin reports, course reports, grade reports. So there are various types of reports. Currently, there are about 13 report plugins. The most popular one is the ad hoc database queries, the engagement analytics, and the gold, silver, bronze medals. And then in the grade book, there was the upload PDF. So if you want information presented to you in a different way, or you want to have different reporting options, you know, Moodle does allow the flexibility for folks to code and write that. There are a couple of things, you know, available. One, the configurable reports that we'll look at, but then there's also a way of writing some custom SQL and pulling out data on your own and being able to run that. I'm blanking on the name of that right now, but I believe that's the one by Tim Hunt. OU. So, but it's a little bit more advanced. You know, for the user, requires a little bit more experience and knowledge of SQL. Administrative tools. These are things that an admin would want to do, kind of be able to kind of clean things up on the site and what have you. Things like the advanced spam cleaner and edit roles by capability. And so it's kind of some overarching functionality that is useful to an admin that doesn't really have a place, but it's, I'd say, like little admin jobs. And with user profiles, we can customize the types of fields that you can add to a user profile. Moodle allows you to create custom user profile fields, and they used to just be text, but now it's text, date, and so the one that was written is certificates wall, which is actually not related to the certificates activity module, but is a service at certificateswall.com, and so it doesn't have anything to do with badges. So one of the things I try to do is to, when I see folks are naming their plugins, I try to reasonably ensure that it's not going to be overly confusing to the community or overly generic. And so that's kind of one of the things that I try to look at and make sure that you know, things are named well. In this case, because it you know, is related to a specific domain, certificateswall.com, the name made sense. But you know, sometimes I do ask people to rename their plugins, just so that, you know, for you, the users, that it's a good, consistent experience. advantages of add-ons and disadvantages. They expand functionality, but there's risk. They may not be tested as thoroughly. They may not perform as well. And so use with caution. And so I like to tell people, always have a backup of your site, and I call it the backup trinity. Back up your code base, back up your database, and back up your Moodle data path. And use a test server. You can install packages if you're kind of new to web development type stuff, and those are available on download.moodle.org. But use a test server, even if it's just on your local machine, and test things there. And be patient and kind to the maintainers. Most of them are volunteers, and even if they work for a company that paid them to write the code, a lot of times it's maintained on their own individually. So in Moodle 2.5, one of the great features is that it's now much easier to install plugins or add-ons. And so the difference between a plugin and an add-on is all add-ons are plugins, but not all plugins are add-ons. Add-ons are things that are not part of Moodle core, and so it's something that we're adding on to the structure there. In Moodle 2.5, if you log in as the site admin, there's a button up here that allows you to browse Moodle.org plugins and find the things that you want for your version of Moodle, and if it's compatible with the version of Moodle that you're running, then it'll give you an option for an install button, and you click install and go through a few confirmations, and you're good to go. Prior to Moodle 2.5, you have to download the zip file, copy those files into the right directory of your Moodle install, depending on the type of plugin that it is. So if it's themes, it goes into the theme folder. If it's a filter, it goes into the filters folder. And so you had to kind of have a little bit more server knowledge. And so the goal is to make things a lot easier. If you're a developer, I still recommend using Git to install the code and going out and grabbing from the other developer's repository the code that you're going to want to use, just in terms of upgrading and adding patches and things like that. So if you're going to be working with the code and hopefully submitting patches back to the developer and things like that, then Git is recommended. Certainly for a development server, but for a production server, you may just want to go ahead and use what's officially in Moodle Plugins. And everything that's in Moodle Plugins, if a new version comes out, when you go to the notifications page, you'll be able to see, that there's a new version for a particular plugin. And you can download that and get that installed as well. You can search Moodle plugins after you've clicked on that button saying you want to install a Moodle plugin onto your server. You can browse it by the type, the file type or plugin type that we were talking about. You can search Moodle plugins by name, and then you can review the download stats to kind of get a sense of what's popular. And so here's the install button that you would see if you wanted to install the checklist block. You simply click on that, and then that'll bring you to some confirmation pages saying, okay, you told me that you want to install this add-on from the Moodle Plugins directory. Do you want to continue? And you say yes, you want to continue. It'll validate and make sure that the file that it's downloaded, the zip file, conforms with and has the information that it needs to install correctly. And then it'll install it. It'll copy the files in, and then it goes through the normal installation, asking you to upgrade the Moodle database. You confirm that, and then it'll let you know that it was properly installed. And if there are any configuration settings for that plugin, you'll have a chance to set those up. And if for some reason that doesn't work and you need to work with a zip file, you can do that as well. But you'll have to select the plugin type first and then add the zip file and then check a little box that says that you understand that doing so can be hazardous to your Moodle site's health. And after you've installed a plugin, especially on a test server, if you don't like it, you can delete it. And so it'll ask you to do that. Some of the plugins, we need to improve, I think, the consistency here. Some of the plugins are able to actually remove the directory and the files for you, like themes. Others, like the blocks, aren't quite doing that yet. So I want to look into that and see what's happening there to make sure that you can add and remove plugins as easily and smoothly as possible. Just kind of giving you a sense of some of the more popular plugins and the things that you might want to look for. I look for, the description, first of all. Does it fulfill a functional need that I have? Does it provide a screenshot that I can kind of get a sense of what it's going to look like on my site? Is there documentation for it? Now, a theme, doesn't necessarily have a great need, I think, for documentation, unless it has a lot of options to it. How popular is it? How many other people have downloaded it and seem to be using it? And have any trusted members of the community written reviews of it? Reviews are a way of having people that we know and trust in the Moodle community, that they have experience, to have them go through and write about what they see as the strengths and weaknesses of a particular plugin or a particular, actually it's a version of the plugin. What versions does the plugin work for? What versions of Moodle? So, is it going to work on my version? If it's not listed as being for 2.5, it means it hasn't been tested, and so obviously you'd be installing at your own risk. I like to look at, who's the maintainer of that code, who shared it with the community, and how long have they been with the community. So in this case, Sean has been an active member of the Moodle community for about 6 years. And so, yes, the process really has come a long way. The Hotpot Activity module allows teachers to administer hot potatoes and text choice quizzes via Moodle. And so it's been downloaded 35,000 times. It does have documentation and was contributed by Gordon Bateson, who's been with the community for 9 years. Reviews is an area, I think we're constantly looking for more reviewers, and so if you're someone who likes to give things a good critical look, feel free to write to me and let me know that you're interested in being a reviewer. In terms of favorite themes, I'm actually a huge fan of Formal White. And the reason I like it so much is just, because it allows me to do the custom CSS and to change things, to how I want them to be. So, but yeah, I don't know if folks have favorite themes or plugins that they're using. Feel free to talk about those in the chat with each other as I try to wrap up here. And so the collapsed topics is the one that I mentioned, where it's a course format, and it kind of got rid of the scroll of death by taking a whole topic and collapsing it, and then folks would need to kind of click on the arrow if they wanted to see the details of that. So that's gotten over 21,000 downloads in the last year. The maintainer of that is Gareth, and he's been around the community a long time, very well known. Big Blue Button is an open source web conferencing tool being used here at iMoot. I'm a huge fan. And so they have an activity module to integrate with Moodle that allows including recording and playing back of sessions. And so that does have a review by Gavin, and all of these are links, and I'll upload this presentation at the end so that folks can have this and go through it and kind of poke around. Maintained by Fred and Jesus, and so great tool. And it reminded me that there's this concept called sets, and sometimes there are add-ons that really work better or best when they're combined with other plugins. And sometimes there's dependencies. For example, it wouldn't make any sense and the code wouldn't work for the feedback block without having the activity module feedback installed. And so developers can declare those dependencies, and that's something I try to look for, that says, well, let's make sure that we have all of the code that we need for this code to work really well. A set may or may not have dependencies, but sometimes it's just that the tools conveniently work best together, even if there isn't a dependency. And so there are actually two plugins, big blue button plugins, and as I understand, one really is for recordings, and the other one's more for setting up conferences. The configurable report block is very popular, allowing you to create custom reports without knowing a lot of SQL or really any. And so it's really suitable for teachers and admins. Gavin contributed that, or I'm sorry, Gavin reviewed it. Juan Leva, Spain, shared that. And he's been with the community as long as I have, 8 years. And so that's a really cool tool. The grid format, kind of gave these more visual ways and of kind of looking at the course, hiding all topics and creating a grid of icons with short titles. And so Julian's currently the maintainer of that, along with Gareth. Both of them have been with the community for a while. So if you're installing add-ons to your site, a lot of the entries in the Moodle plugins will give you access to how to file an issue, a tracker issue, if you have experienced a bug, if you have a feature request or suggestions for improvement. Moodle Docs, if the documentation isn't there and you really like it and are using it, feel free to start it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Do your best with it, and folks can kind of come in and improve on it. It's one of the great things about being in an open source, constructionist-based, community, is that you can start something and it doesn't have to be perfect. Other folks can kind of help clean it up and improve it. And then translations, I think I wrote the birthday block, and within a week I had 2 or 3 translations into Portuguese and Japanese, and really just amazing to see the power of community. And that's really what I like to encourage folks, is to really work together to share what you can. And so don't worry if you're inexperienced. You can still make a valuable contribution. So as I've said, folks should feel free to discuss their favorite add-ons. I know we're getting close to time here. So, any questions, feel free to kind of post those in here or grab the microphone and let me know. Thanks, Leo. If you could, send me an email. My email address is anthony@moodle.org, and just let me know that you're interested in being a reviewer. to sort of vet our reviewers, just to make sure that they have a solid experience with Moodle and can assess code and the functionality of plugins or add-ons well. So plugin review, essentially what I do when someone submits a new plugin, I download it, I install it, and then I go through and I look at things like, is the copyright information correct? And is the code sanitizing user input for security purposes? And just does it function, or does it throw a lot of PHP warnings and errors? And if it does, I try to work that through. Sometimes folks will add a plugin and they kind of format things differently, or they use foreign language file names or function names. And I encourage them to change those to English so that other developers will be able to collaborate and work with the community well. I try to make sure that if they're using something like GitHub repository, that they make the source code, a link to that source code available so that other people can get involved. Documentation, screenshots, really just encouraging that they complete the information as much as possible so that when users come in and try to assess whether the code's going to be helpful for them, that they can get a good sense of that pretty quickly and have a consistent experience throughout. So it's pretty much just a quick review of the code, just to make sure that it seems to be following Moodle standards, that it looks like Moodle code, that it's licensed as Moodle code, that it functions as a good Moodle plugin. Sometimes I'll get one and people will say, oh, in the README they'll say you have to change, a certain core file. And so I tell them, well, I'm sorry, but that can't be a Moodle plugin. That will be a patch. But sometimes we can suggest ways of kind of working around that so that, they don't have to make the change to core that they thought. Yes, changing Moodle core is bad. Moodle core is now much more tested. Any changes to code. When I first got involved with Moodle, once you had CVS Write Access, anybody could go in and change any part of Moodle, sort of at any time, and not necessarily realizing how it might impact the work of someone else. And so, it's been really cool to watch Moodle mature over the years. And now, that there are integrators and testers and reviewers, peer reviewers. And so, my hat's off to Moodle headquarters. They continue to rock and do a great job. Any other questions? What's the backlog of new plugins waiting approval like at the moment? Thanks for asking, Dan. It's currently there's 30 plugins waiting for approval. I would guess each one takes, at least for me, I find with interruptions and everything else, about an hour. And so I've got a fair amount of work, backlogged. My goal is to be able to, once I'm caught up again, is to be able to review them in about 48 hours time, so after submittal, and just try to stay on top of them. Unfortunately, if, when things here at the parish and just life in general kind of comes at me, it sometimes takes me away from Moodle, and then I fall behind. Apologies for that. Any other questions, comments? Favorite Moodle plugins that folks are using? So there's Lindy, there's some documentation. If you just look Moodle coding guidelines, I think it's called, in Moodle Docs, we'll go through and help you there. Again, I'd install that code checker as well, and kind of see the feedback that gives, that would be a great service. Say a reviewer goes in and downloads the code and runs it through the code checker and kind of reports, does it comply or not. The whole Moodle Plugins ecosystem continues to develop, and so if there's information that you would find more helpful or presented in a different way, feel free to let me know or to file an issue in the tracker under Moodle Site Project for the plugins. There's a component for Moodle Plugins, so feel free to do that as well. Install one plugin into a vanilla Moodle site. Which would it be? Good question, Gavin. Most recently, I find most of the production sites that I'm running really haven't been using any. I think it really just depends on the needs of the site. If you want something more social, like the one on the Dallas school, really likes the birthday block that I wrote, and so. But I think each institution really needs to look at, what is it that we're trying to accomplish, and see, kind of which plugin would work best for them. I don't know. Does anybody else have any opinions on that? If they could just install one plugin, one add-on, what would it be? Certificate was interesting. Like I said, I don't know. Now that Badges is out, how that might kind of replace that checklist. Is good for folks. Oh yeah, I think I would agree. The custom reporting, the one by Tim Hunt, to be able to kind of create those custom reports, I think would probably be my first. Badges came out in 2.5. Yes, that's a new feature that I'm excited to see how it gets utilized. Teresa, I've not heard of anything about config reports being included in core, but I may be missing something. But certainly feel free to add it in as an add-on. Yes, logging API I know is being looked at for some improvements. Any other comments, questions? So I don't think there were a lot of API changes with Moodle 2.5, so I think it would be pretty easy for folks to kind of get their plugins 2.5 ready. I'd say in most cases, I would certainly feel comfortable at least testing those plugins that were designed for 2.4 and 2.5, but I would want to encourage folks to test that. The whole Moodle development process now, and just in terms of stability, there's so much QA testing and peer reviewing and integration reviews, and there's so much happening now that in terms of quality of code, I'm fairly comfortable with even a new release. obviously, with new functionality, there's going to be some things that people discover once they start using it. But overall, I think Moodle is remarkably stable. Dan, what is CR? Oh, the custom reports, yes. Yeah, obviously giving folks through the UI access, I'd say it would be the same thing, the same security concern that maybe a Moodle partner would have with giving someone, say, add minor, that PHP myadmin type thing. There's a risk there of having people directly manipulate the database. How about linking from the plugin page to the Amos tree? Native, I'm not sure exactly what you mean, but I know that when a plugin is approved, that those strings are automatically added to Amos so that folks can begin translating. But if there's a particular link that you think would be good on a particular page, just let me know. How fast plugin developers get their plugin up to date? New releases? No, we don't have any stats on that. It's very hit and miss. It just depends on the developer. And that's the one thing that really kind of stood out to me today as I was preparing the presentation is the most popular add-ons and plugins are written by folks who have been in the community for a good while. So they tend to be responsive. And that's something you can look at. You can see how often are folks adding a new version, how often is the code being updated. But even that can be misleading because if code's remarkably well written and perfectly stable, and there's not much need to change it, then too, it can be very good. So, but it would be good. Maybe one area that we can improve on is developing a better communication system. Now that we have Moodle Core on 6-month releases, I think maintainers can kind of prepare and begin working for that. And, if it's something that you need, kind of let the maintainer know, and, maybe to volunteer to do some testing if there are updates that are needed. Doing some comments here in chat. Yeah, I agree, Dan. It would be good to see for what languages code is available. I'm going to write that down. That would be very helpful. And one of the things that I would like to see in Moodle plugins is kind of Drupal does this, I think, really well, is giving you multiple kind of ways of filtering it. And so, say, to be able to kind of pull up all of the plugins that are available currently for 2.5, and then if we were to have the language, all of the 2.5 French that have a French translation, and things like that, being able to combine those filters. Good. Justin, I've heard some talk of, every once in a while it comes up this question about, donate button, and yeah, I'm not quite sure how I feel about that. So much of what happens in the community is done by goodwill, but I know goodwill doesn't always pay the bills or help people put food on the table, and so that's an area I think for improvement. but I think it's an area that I at least want to approach cautiously. So, every once in a while, I'll get a plugin that, kind of strikes me as a little spammy, in that it looks like it's just an attempt to do some cheap marketing by getting their name out there. And so, but it's a question worth considering. So 6-month release, has it impacted the uptake of plugins at all? No, I think it's just taken a while for folks to begin sharing plugins. And now that it's easier to get them installed, I think that's, we're going to see more. I've been happy to see here at the iMoot, a greater emphasis and people talking about plugins a great deal more. So one of the issues I have is a version of a plugin for a few. Yes, that's a good point. We need to, now that we have, some advance notice, we should probably put that out there that that something's available, currently for say 2.6 dev. That means that you're kind of testing it and getting it prepared, and then when it's ready, then we could get there. So, good suggestion. On the plugin. So yeah, currently, we do still have the reviews are only by, kind of trusted people, wanting to maintain a pretty high quality there of the reviews. But if you would be good. Yeah, thanks, Fred. I'll take a look at that link to Ubuntu.
Hi, Anthony, it's Shane here. Just thought I'd just quickly jump in and just to say a thank you on behalf of the iMoot team for presenting today, and obviously a lot of good discussion happening, and I don't want to kill that. I just thought I'd jump in now and say thank you to you. I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Yeah, people could put a donate button, kind of in the plugins interface, or a link to their website. I just find myself having mixed feelings about that. Not wanting things to become financial driven, but more based on goodwill and a true sense of community. But I realize I can be perhaps a little idealistic in that regard. So, yeah, I think, before many admins were real hesitant to kind of, add plugins because it involved, going into the server and things like that. I'm hoping with Moodle 2.5 being able to install those directly and kind of test them more easily, that'll help a great deal. I've been in a few environments where the IT team, doesn't necessarily feel all that comfortable, doing things with a Linux server and adding code and things like that, because they tend to be predominantly a Windows shop. And so hopefully this will help out. How many plugin developers are not paid to do them? Yeah, again, a good question. Whether folks are paying for plugins to be written, or like I wrote the birthday block, but I wasn't paid to do it per se, but I was certainly paid by the school, not for writing the code, but just my salary, and so I'd say it's an interesting question. Typically what I find is, they might be paid to write the code, but not necessarily to maintain it. And so they'll write it, they'll submit it, but then there's very little incentive for them to keep maintaining it. And that's where I think, like a donation button might provide some incentive. There have been a couple of folks that have indicated that to me over the years. So. No worries, Gavin. I like the tough questions. So, yeah, my general sense is like Justin says, is that probably the majority are not paid. Folks just kind of write because either they enjoy it or they see the necessity for it. Is there? I'm trying to think if there's anything like, I know we have Planet Moodle, but I don't know of any type of newsletter. I think even just with Moodle in general, there was an attempt at one point to try to do a newsletter, and it seemed to kind of flounder. Again, for a lot of us, I think it's just having the time to do things. Good ideas, but not sure if people have the time to do a newsletter. Yeah, I've not ever seen kind of I've encouraged some schools to make donations to Moodle that use it and host it themselves, just as a small token of gratitude. And so, but I've never seen any hard numbers from that. But my impression is that even to the Moodle.org, for Moodle itself, that there are relatively few donations. So it's one of those things that I think people like the idea. I'm just not sure in the end that it ends up really kind of supporting people. But maybe that's an area where we need to kind of grow that and create that type of culture that allows people the opportunity and encourages people to be generous. So I'm a big advocate of open source and open educational resources and sharing and things like that. But it would be nice if folks would give donations and say, hey, I really value this and I think it's important to me, and I just want to support you a little bit and hope that you can continue and keep going at it. Yeah, I think you're right, Justin. The reality of donation is, I think that it is very, very seldom. Great. Well, I certainly don't want to hold folks up. Happy to stay here and respond to questions. And like I said, feel free to unmute yourself and just ask it or write it in the chat. So it's been great sharing this information with you. Feel free to anytime you have questions, how you might get involved in the Moodle community. I'm always happy to respond to emails, anthony@moodle.org. And so anything I can do to be supportive and helpful of folks in using and sharing plugins and add-ons in the Moodle community, do so. Thanks, Justin and Gavin. Yeah, sorry. You know, I know there was a lot of information to kind of race through, and so, but yeah, I really just wanted folks to get a sense. And all of this information, everything that's in the presentation today, is you know, available. You can browse and look around in plugins. There's a stats page that you can find that information yourself and click through and look at things. So explore, and if you come up with suggestions for improvement, you know, send me an email. I'm going to go ahead and try to upload the this presentation now to and appreciate everyone attending, and hope you have a great rest of the iMoot.
Hi Anthony, it's Lindy from Pukunui. Just following on from Shane, I wanted to say thank you so much for that presentation. It was awesome. We're now getting ready for the next couple of sessions coming up in about 10 minutes time, so I'm going to unkindly boot everyone out of the room so they can go and get on with the rest of the moot. But thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.